Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Urban who? Ohio State did just fine in their first year without Urban Meyer, as Ryan Day led the Buckeyes to a 13-1 record, champions of the Big Ten, and a heartbreaking defeat to Clemson in the college football playoff. But they look poised to avenge that loss and make a return trip to the playoff and really capture the entire thing in 2020 as we take a look at their upcoming schedule as the second ranked team in our way too early top 25. Last year's Ohio State team was absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. They were sound offensively, they were sound defensively, and for the majority of the year, we repeatedly said, we believe they are the most sound and complete team on both sides of the ball. More so than LSU, more so than Alabama, more so than Clemson. Ohio State, for the majority of the year, looked like the best team in college football. And they nearly got to the national championship to set up the matchup we all wanted to see, LSU and Ohio State for the Natty. But they fell to the Clemson Tigers 29-23 in heartbreaking and potential controversial fashion. But Ryan Day enters year two with a team that might be more equipped to make the run and finally capture the whole thing. Justin Fields is back at quarterback, one of the best in the entire country last year and will be again this year. They landed Trey Sermon, the transfer running back from Oklahoma, paired up with Master Teague at running back as well. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are back to lead the wide receiver corps, and I really don't think this Ohio State offense is going to miss a beat. Defensively, that's the only place I'm concerned with going into the season if I'm Ohio State. You lose Jeff Okudah, one of the best cornerbacks in the entire country. You lose Chase Young, one of the best defensive ends in the entire country, the number 2 and the number 3 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. And they lose Jeff Hafley, the co-defensive coordinator from last year, who went to take the head coaching position at Boston College. Despite all of these losses, though, the Buckeyes should still boast one of the best defenses in the Big Ten and maybe, once again, even in the entire country. When you look at their schedule, Bowling Green and Buffalo, not a bad way to open up the season. It's this middle game here at Oregon that's going to be the tricky one. They go on the road to take on the Ducks, the Rose Bowl and Pac-12 champions from a season ago. But unfortunately, Oregon will be without their star quarterback, Justin Herbert, gone to the NFL. They now have to deal with a brand new offensive coordinator in Joe Moorhead and a brand new quarterback, whoever that may be, potentially Anthony Brown, the transfer quarterback from Boston College. What we do know is that Oregon will rely on one of the best defenses in all of college football. So this has the potential to be maybe a relatively low-scoring game out at Austin Stadium, of course, if this game is played, and fingers crossed it is, because it's going to be one of the best games, not just of Week 2, but maybe even of the entire year. Top 10 matchup in Week 2 is very, very rare to get. So it's going to be Ohio State's first real test. But Justin Fields has played in big games before. The majority of this Ohio State team, players and coaches, have played or coached in big games before. They were in the playoff last year. Can't get any bigger than that. It will prove to be a very tough environment, of course, if there are fans, but it will certainly give Ohio State a run for their money. We're not predicting anything yet, but as you can see, the FPI does believe that the Buckeyes will go on the road and get a win. They then get Rutgers to open up Big Ten play, and from then on out, it's Big Ten all the way. They defeated the Scarlet Knights 56-21 last year. 35-point victory, not too bad, although many believe they should have won by a lot more. But should take care of the Scarlet Knights in Columbus. Shouldn't be too difficult, even though Greg Schiano is arriving, and even though I do believe he will turn that Rutgers program around. They then get their bye week at the perfect time, in my opinion. You've got a conference game under your belt. You've got a huge non-conference game under your belt, which is going to be a true road game. And this bye week comes before the biggest stretch of Ohio State's season. And that is a 3-game stretch against Iowa, and then back-to-back games at Michigan State and at Penn State. And I'm sure many of you are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Yeah, all three of these games had the potential to be tough. But we all know the toughest is going to be the whiteout game at Penn State. They drove Iowa out of the West, and luckily they don't have to go to Kinnick Stadium because we all know what happened the last time Ohio State went there. Got absolutely murdered. They host the Hawkeyes off of a bye week. That really does benefit Ryan Day and his squad. At Michigan State, they beat the Spartans 34-10 last year. It's a road game. You can never take those lightly, but they're dealing with a brand new head coach in Mel Tucker and a team that really could never find consistency on either side of the ball the past few years under Mark D'Antonio, and really has not been the same since that college football playoff loss against Alabama since 2015. Since 2015, Michigan State really has been on the downhill slope. They really haven't gotten back to the elite level. Tucker could get them there, probably not in 2020 though. So Penn State, this is a tough slate for me. These are quality opponents, but it's Penn State that of course is the biggest. It's Penn State that could very well decide who wins the Big Ten East Division. It's the whiteout game. You've got Sean Clifford. You've got Journey Brown. You've got Pat Freiermuth, one of the best tight ends in all of college football. And you've got yet another very strong and stingy Penn State defense led by Micah Parsons at linebacker. This Penn State team is legit, and if they finally want to win the East and get to the playoff, they've got to beat Ohio State. And they're lucky enough to be hosting that game in Happy Valley. Once again, FPI is projecting a win here for the Buckeyes. We're not predicting anything yet. But this is by far, outside of Oregon, the toughest game on Ohio State's schedule. It is the toughest one. They beat Penn State 28-17 last year at Ohio State. Should have lost at Penn State 2 years ago. Penn State not only blew the lead, but had some very questionable play calls down the stretch. And of course, 2 years prior to that, that was the game that got Penn State back on the map. Got James Franklin showing that he can get the job done in Happy Valley. So this game, so many major implications here. Big Ten title implications, East Division crown implications, and ultimately college football playoff implications for both the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions. And you can't help but wonder, too, that if Ohio State were to lose at Oregon and then lose at Penn State, yes, that's 2 losses, but they're both road losses against very quality opponents who at the time are probably top 10 teams. You can't help but wonder that if Ohio State somehow went 10-2 in the regular season, but with losses to Oregon and Penn State, and then maybe somehow still got to the Big Ten championship and won it, could they still slip into the playoff as a 2-loss conference champion? Scenarios we'll have to work out later. Probably unlikely, but in the world of college football, you never know. After this Penn State game, the biggest on their schedule, they take on Nebraska and Indiana. Back-to-back home games following back-to-back road games. Nebraska and Indiana, 2 teams I'm not too worried about for the Buckeyes, considering they beat Nebraska 48-7 last year on the road and beat Indiana on the road 51-10 last year. I expect the Hoosiers to give the Buckeyes a bigger test of these 2 matchups, but at home, following big-time games against Iowa, Michigan State, and Penn State, I would expect Ryan Day's squad to get the job done here. At Maryland, at Illinois, Michigan. You look at Maryland, it was only 2 years ago that Ohio State nearly lost to the Terrapins on the road. Maryland doesn't miss that wide open pass in the end zone on that 2-point conversion. They walk away with a win over the Buckeyes. Couldn't get the job done. They returned to Maryland this year after defeating them 73-14 last year. They held and really showed no mercy against Mike Locksley's squad last year. But you could view this as a major trap game, especially if Maryland takes a step forward. They started off so hot in 2019, and then really the flame was put out very, very quickly. If Mike Locksley's squad is flirting with bowl eligibility, or maybe has clinched it by November 14th, you could see this be a potential trap game. Maryland's hype, ready to go, looking to kind of get revenge off of that devastating loss they had at home 2 years ago. Not saying Ohio State's losing this game, but I'm saying if you're looking for a trap game, there's always one. And we know that Ohio State in the past has tripped up against inferior opponents on the road, mostly coming out of the West, but still, then maybe this Maryland game could be the one for that. Or maybe it's the road game at Illinois, a team that after they upset Wisconsin in Champaign, went on to go to a bowl game. And during that stretch to get to the postseason, they went on the road to Michigan State and came back down 28-3 to get the win. Lovie Smith's Fighting Illini team has turned a corner to the point where they might be able to make back-to-back bowl appearances. Once again, not saying that Ohio State's going to lose at Illinois, but it's a road game against a Big Ten West team at the end of the season. A lot of talent returning. You just never know. And then finally, the win against Michigan. I said win against Michigan. We're just going to assume that because of the FPI prediction and also the fact that Ohio State has owned Michigan for nearly the past decade. Certainly owned them during the Jim Harbaugh era. Harbaugh 0-5 against the Wolverines. Now, of course, we're not predicting what's going to happen here. Those will come later. But they do get to host the Wolverines in the game. And depending on what happens here in the Penn State game, depending on how Penn State and Michigan fare the rest of the way, this could be the game that decides the Big Ten East Division. We don't know yet. We don't know. But Michigan has so many key pieces to return. Ohio State to replace. Ohio State defeated them 56-27 last year in the Big House. Harbaugh has not had any luck against the Buckeyes. Didn't have it against Urban. Didn't have it against Ryan Day last year. And with this game being in Columbus, I don't think luck's going to be in his favor again. FPI once again predicting them to beat the Wolverines to send Harbaugh to 0-6 against the Buckeyes. Worst record by any brand new head coach against the Buckeyes at Michigan. Got to win the big one at some point. But Ohio State, the schedule outside of the road game against Oregon, outside of the road game against Penn State, it's very favorable. So much talent returns for Ryan Day's squad. FPI has them at 12-0, which means they'd go to the Big Ten Championship to face a team like maybe Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota. Those are probably going to be the top two. Maybe Iowa. Who knows? Maybe a rematch against the Hawkeyes as they face them on October 10th. But a 12-0 record would sure enough get them to that point. They would be favored in the Big Ten Championship game, and they're looking very, very pretty to make a return trip to the college football playoff. And once they get there, revenge will be on their mind. The Buckeyes have this feeling of unfinished business. Many believe they should have beaten Clemson last year. Probably should have. They blew the lead, were unable to convert in the red zone, and yes, there were a few controversial calls. They've got some unfinished business. It starts on September 5th against Bowling Green, but I certainly do like their chances. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, and subscribe. We thank you all so much for your support. Check out everything down in the description below for exclusive college football news, content, and offers you do not want to miss. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.